One by one, they came, they saw, they crumbled, they looked at each other. The cartel are imploding. First there was Raptor and Focal. Now Harry has joined the queue. There's the Toms, there's all the clingers-ons, and I can tell you something. If you watch any of their first videos on Wildcard, and even Let's Talk FPL's done it, all you need to do is look at every single one of their videos. In fact, you don't need, no need. You can watch one, you've watched the same video from all of them. Today's video is not going to be that. I'm going to talk you through why, if you haven't pressed the button, do not press it. There is no need to panic at all. I'm not pressing it. I've still got all my chips available. I'm going to talk you through what's actually better this week. And that's probably playing a triple captain chip and avoiding having a wild card, or using a free hit. If you really want to get Haaland in, he's not in your team and you can't do it without completely blowing it up, that's also probably a better play than playing a wild card now. It's not a good window to do it. You've got the international break, Champions League football, European competitions all starting now. You need a bit more data before you can make informed decisions moving forward. There's injuries galore. We don't know what it means. Again, if you like this content and you like something a bit different, something original, which is what I'm bringing to the scene, make sure you smash a like on the video. Leave me a comment with what you're doing. And if you haven't already smashed that subscribe button, please consider doing so. And ladies and gents, let's get into the original drafts. So potentially the best play actually this week is whether it's time to play the triple captain chip. Now, I give you the case of one Erling Haaland. Unbelievable form, 6 goals already through the opening 5 game weeks, and he comes up against Burnley at home. The pros to do this. He started the season like we always see. He started like an absolute house on fire. He's left Mo Salah in his coattails, in the dust. He's in the bin. It's all about the Haaland time, and the FPL cartel know it, and they're all panicking to get him into their own teams. Burnley also have the highest XGC conceded through the first 5 game weeks of the season. It sits over 10. They are comfortably the worst team for expected goals conceded. Obviously not goals in total, but goals potentially being conceded. And historically, the man, the cyborg, the legend that is the Norwegian beast, he traditionally performs way better at home. Now the cons, there are cons, obviously, there's always cons. Last year, I played it on Erling Haaland against Southampton. The second time round for 2 points. That was the away fixture. A lot of people played it the first time round against Southampton at home, only got the 1 goal, 6 points. So it can go poorly, and Burnley have been a lot better than what we've seen from promoted teams, even though the XGC does tell us that they are still statistically the worst team for conceding chances and expected goals. The other thing you've got to take into account is apparently there's a little bit of noise about potentially he's obviously been coming off before 90 minutes in quite a few games this season. Maybe that's Pep managing his workload because obviously they've got a lot of injuries at Man City and he's trying to keep him fresh so he can just continue to do the business. But there's also been rumours of a potentially sore back. Now, that's not put me off obviously having him because I've had him for the last 3 weeks. But it is something to keep in mind if you're going to be playing the triple captain. Now, a lot of other people that aren't wildcarding will be playing the triple captain on Haaland, and maybe you can get a bit of a march on him like we've seen with the Salah captain as the last few weeks by captaining Haaland, by not playing the triple captain chip and hoping that a later game week he will actually outscore what he scores this week. And lastly, could he be rested for the Champions League? I don't think so. Monaco got spanked in the first game week the first match day of the Champions League. I do not see that being a problem. Other options that you can do with Haaland. So there's Leeds at home in game week 13. There's Sunderland at home in game week 15. There's West Ham at home in game week 17. And there's Sunderland away in game week 19. All very good opportunities, and potentially delaying it to one of these ones might make more sense than playing it on Burnley, or against Burnley this particular week. But yeah, maybe you need to think about the triple captaincy chip. And remember, you can deactivate it prior to the start of the game week, even if you've already activated it. It's one of those chips that you get a pullback. You can actually deactivate it if you don't like it the closer you get to the game week. So if you're one of those new people to the game, you can do that. Keep that in mind. But once the game week starts, you can't do it. So what does my team look like and why I don't think I need a wild card? So I've obviously made 3 transfers. I talked about my transfer plans yesterday. Semenyo, Udogie, Ray are in, and I'm going very different. I'm very happy with the team, the way it looks this particular week. Yes, people say you've got Ollie Watkins and you've got Milinkovic, but you can't argue that Milinkovic playing Sunderland at home is just on a par with what other people are bringing in on wildcard. I dare say I'd rather Milinkovic at home against Sunderland than Gabriel away against Newcastle. That's just me, but that's what I'm thinking. Obviously, my bench, it's half decent this week anyway as well. But like Ollie Watkins is there. And the plan, as I said yesterday's video, Milinkovic will become a different defender next week in my plan move. And then Watkins will become someone in game week 7. Game week 8. So again, I know where I'm going with my team. There is no need to panic. We've got another international break. Half the team could get injured. If I wildcarded now, all of a sudden I could end up with 5 injuries or something during the international break. No wildcard to save my ass. And all of a sudden I look like an absolute clown. Whereas other people that are wildcarding now might be panicking when it comes to the international break and all of a sudden half their team's unfit or coming back with flags and they haven't got a wildcard to fix it. So again, that is the benefit of delaying it, particularly after these international breaks, which is why I still want to play mine in wildcard 12. But look, I just wanted to show my team before we delve into what you need to look for in terms of wildcarding this week. So the wildcard or free hit, the answer to this question is obviously Haaland FOMO. If you don't have Haaland FOMO, there is no need to be activating either chip this week. But if you're of the belief that Haaland's going to be that good, you have to have him as captain this week, you have to weigh up whether you want a free hit or if you want a wild card. Now, honestly, Salah has not started the season very well at all. He didn't finish last season very well at all. And maybe this is a sign of what to come. Or he could turn it around. We do not know, but the data suggests it's the former and he's no good. So in that case, it would just make sense to get rid of him permanently because I don't actually think wasting 14.5 million on Salah is a very good idea at this point in time. Other reasons potentially you want a wild card or free hit. You won't want a free hit because you're going to come back to these assets anyway. But this is more wild card. If you've got a boatload of Forest assets and a boatload of Villa assets, you might be tempted to just throw in the towel and just rip that entire team apart. But again, there are games midweek. There could be injuries, etc., etc. I might even have to wild card if I get a lot of midweek injuries because the Carabao Cup's on, the first Europa League games are on, so Forest and Villa are obviously playing in them later in the week. So these things also have to be kept in mind. People also want to pivot to the DC superheroes at the back. And I understand this one because it makes a lot of sense. They are set and forget. You bring in the centre-backs, they're going to play. They don't get subbed. There's more opportunities for them to get that bonus 2 points. Even in the midfield, people are going for him in the midfield. Now, I don't know about going for him in the midfield, and I've seen a lot of stacks in every one of these others wildcard drafts, and I don't understand it. I do not understand that pick. He had his good game. He's not getting another easy one against Wolves other than Burnley, but they have to go away for that one. And I know they went away for the Wolves game, but Wolves are atrocious. Have we learned anything from the fixtures play over the form to the start of the season? So as we've seen, lots of people, including myself, we played the fixtures thinking that Nottingham Forest, thinking that Aston Villa were going to be really good. They sucked. Have we learned anything from that? Are we just sitting there picking players now, looking at the fixtures going, they're coming in to run a good fixtures? Or we're completely ignoring the fact that potentially this season, the rule book's gone out the window and potentially we should be looking at players in form. Very interesting. Lots of things to consider. The thing that they are forgetting when they're wildcarding in game week 6, and this happened to people that wildcard in game week 4 and 5 as well, is the impact on Europe. Now, some people say I emphasize it too much, but this summer transfer window, we saw Liverpool, we saw Man City, we saw Arsenal, we saw Chelsea significantly increase their squad depth. City's probably went the other way a little bit, which is why they've been probably the more easier ones to pick so far this season. Even Newcastle added a lot of assets to their squad. It is so much harder to guarantee any of those minutes in there. So these wildcard drafts they're putting together might be absolutely rubbish because the rotation risk might actually be real, and we just don't know that because we've only had 1 week of the Champions League. 1 week. That's all we've had. Imagine in the next international break, we will get the full picture of who gets rotated, who's playing Champions League, who's playing Premier League. That will become much clearer, and they'll have to be using free transfers or taking hits to fix that. Whereas if you don't wildcard, you don't have to worry about that. You can fix it and get that data before you then play it. We're also close to the managerial sacking season. We've already seen Forest dispose of their manager. There's every chance that West Ham make a change and Harry Potter gets expelled out of the West Ham Football Club very shortly as well. I think he's got 2 jobs to save himself. There could be other changes afoot. Teams down the bottom, this is a time they like to make a change. This can kickstart a completely different run of form and completely change the FDR based on managers coming in. We saw it with Moyes last year for Everton. There's nothing to think that it won't happen again, and it will change our complete minds, and we're making decisions this week that are going to affect our teams long term. You do have to keep that in mind. So on to the fixture difficulty rating then for game weeks 6 to 11. And Tottenham Hotspur, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they are top of the fixture ticker. They have the best run of fixtures for the next 6 pretty comfortably, I reckon. Just about. Leeds are not far behind, and neither are Wolves, and Man City have a really good run of fixtures as well. Now, Arsenal next week will definitely be jumping up to the top, which is why a lot of people are wildcarding now to bring in Arsenal assets before they bottom in game week 7. I obviously have just brought one in with using a free transfer, not a free transfer, for a hit, but 9 in here and there. I still don't know. I don't see a world where Arsenal just play the same 11 every single game in the Premier League. I just don't see it. I don't think anyone's safe other than Raya in that team, if I'm being brutally honest. We've seen everyone benched already except Gabriel, but I dare say his benching is coming as well. There's no way Arteta will want a risk of what happened last season with Gabriel. Bournemouth, obviously, really good team there, but their fixtures do get a bit harder around game weeks 10 and 11. Sunderland, Newcastle, Chelsea, Forest, West Ham, even Man United and Everton all have fairly decent fixtures over this period of time. They're all going to change a little bit once that hard one's out of the way. But again, you've got to weigh up whether a team's in Europe, whether they're not in Europe, because the rotation risk completely disappears for teams that aren't in Europe, which is why I quite like Man United's fixture run, even though they're my own team and I'm very sceptical of owning their assets for that. But Chelsea, West Ham in particular, if they make a managerial change game week 8 onwards, Jared Bong could actually be the best forward in the game. He's going to play 90 minutes every single week. Hear me out on that later. I'll explain it. Brighton, obviously, post this week as well, look like a really good team to target as well, and no one's talking about their assets at all. Neither am I. No, I'm joking. And then obviously down the bottom, Burnley, Palace, Liverpool and Fulham all have pretty difficult runs of fixtures, and Aston Villa are getting fast down there as well. Plus their form has been next to ordinary so far this season. So on to a game week 6 wildcard draft. And I've got 2 of these because ideally when you wildcard, you want to bench boost. Now I'm expecting the majority of people that are going to be wildcarding this week have not already bench boosted. And I'm going to talk you through why I've gone with 2 different drafts and how the bench boost looks, but it looks incredible for either of them, particularly in game week 8, provided you get through 6 and 7 with no injuries, which is obviously a little bit skeptical, but you'd like to hope that it still looked pretty good by the end of it. So we're going with David Raya and Dubravka in goal. Now, that's pretty generic across every other draft that you'll see. The reason why I like Raya is because I've had double Forest defence, and I always have double defence, and it always sucks. I know people sit there and say it's much better to go double defence. I'd completely disagree. I'd rather hedge my bets and hope for the best and hope that I've got good players across 4 different defences at least. So Raya's in there because he is the cheapest way into the Arsenal backline, and there's no way he's getting rotated unless he gets injured. So for that reason, he's a set and forget. You don't have to worry about it, whether he's going to be playing, guaranteed. Senesi's obviously in there, plays for Bournemouth, no chance of rotation in Europe. Van de Ven and Vardiol and Dan Burn and Richards are all in Europe. But they rotate really well, and you'd like to hope that for the foreseeable future, they will be fine. And arguably, I think they're all centre-backs. I think if I was picking left wing backs or right backs or left backs or whatever, it'd be a lot more problematic. But I think, realistically, this week and for the future coming weeks, they should be fine because they're playing centre-back. There's not quite as much running as those left and right backs and wing backs, etc. So they should be okay. And I think it's a really good way of getting back into the Man City defence. People looked at Donnarumma. Yes, he could be great, a bit like Raya, exempt from rotation pretty much. But Vardiol has such good aerial threat, and we know this. If for me, it's down to Donnarumma versus Gabriel or Raya versus Vardiol, I'm taking Raya versus Vardiol. I think Vardiol's far better attacking-wise than what Gabriel is. So that's why I've gone that combination there. Dan Burn, Eddie Howe loves him. I can't really see him getting rotated. Richards, again, he plays in that back five. They don't do a hell of a lot of taxing work, so he should be fine as well. And they're all really good for DC points, and that's what everyone wants at this point in time, right? Then we're into the midfield, and this is where the midfield completely changes. I'm not on board the Ndiaye train. They can have him and put him in his graveyard for me on my behalf. Thank you very much. And I'm not going with stupid Stack either. Yes, Trig, you got lucky with 15 points last week, but he ain't doing that every week. I can give you the hot tip. Instead, I've gone for Anthony. Now, no one's talking about Anthony because they're all talking about Stack and these other 5 million enablers or whatever. I'm telling you, pay up the extra 0.5 for Anthony. It is worth the investment. The dude's already got 3 goals, and then not against the easiest teams he scored against as well, and even though some people say Man United's an easy team to score against. But I think he's going to be great. And in game week 8, when you're bench boosting, guess who Burnley play? They play Leeds at home. A great fixture for Dubravka, a great fixture for Anthony. Some would say a great fixture for Stack. But Stack, to me, just doesn't have the same sky-high potential as Anthony does. And Anthony's done it more consistently already this season than what Stack has. So for that reason, I'm going with Anthony. Now, Cole Palmer, I reckon, is going to be out for a little while. Now, this is just me foreseeing into the future, but he's got a groin injury. And I said ever since he got one, it sounds a lot to me like he's got osteitis pubis, and that is not something that goes away without a sustained period of rest. For that reason, I really love Enzo Fernandez. He's going to be on penalties. Ignore the people telling you João Pedro's on him. He's not. Enzo Fernandez is the captain of that club. If he was on the field the last time that João Pedro was and there was a penalty given and Pedro didn't take it, he's not taking the next one because Enzo scored. Flash drive. That's a news take. It's actual for real. And Boom I've gone with. Now, there's 0.9 million in the bank, and originally I had this as Bruno Fernandes, but I compared the data, and outside of Bruno Fernandes with those 2 penalties, and Boomo is destroying him for expected data. And I think particularly outside of that Liverpool game in 8, which is obviously problematic, and that's why I've got a second draft, because this is the one dud player in this draft for game week 8 bench boost. And Boomo is a beast. He's going to play 90 minutes pretty much every single week. He takes a lot of the corners, he takes a lot of the set pieces, and he's got good goal threat. The goals will come. The goals will come, and Mbeumo will be fantastic. And I think a lot of people are going for Fernandez because he gets a couple of DC points every now and again. I just think that Mbeumo is probably a better pick, and he's slightly cheaper as well. Foden. Now, I picked him over Reindeers, and I've spent up for him, which is why the rest of my team looks a little bit different. But Foden's quality. All you have to do is go back to 23-24. And Nightmare tried to tell me that I'm wrong about this. I'm not. He started 33 of 38 games. He got 19 goals non-penalty. Tell me that he can't do it again, because it looks like he's kind of back in that form to what I've seen. And I've watched a lot of City games this season, and Phil Foden arguably looks like he's back to that kind of form. So I love him there. I think he's great. He's going to be great differential as well against all these other people who are going for literally the exact same draft. Semenyo, he's a no-brainer. I think you've just got to have him. Bournemouth in Europe, as I talked about, and the dude's a beast. He plays 90 minutes every single week. I should have just jumped on him 4 weeks ago, but I didn't. But here he is. I think he's definitely the one non-negotiable you've got to have in your midfield. The rest, I think you can get a bit creative and get a steal on all these people literally copying each other in their own drafts. Then up front, it's definitely the Haaland show, but instead of Victor Gyökeres and João Pedro, and I tell you, João Pedro's never started more than 23 games in a season in the Premier League, I'm going with a tried and trusted Evan Ilson, who arguably, he hasn't played that many games in the Premier League either, but he's only had the one season, but he literally is playing 90 minutes every week for Bournemouth. Again, not in Europe, less chance of injury, etc., unless it's like a contact or whatever. He's not going to get a load up of minutes like João Pedro's going to with all the injuries Chelsea have already got up there. They've got Haaland, is about no-brainer. The dude is probably the form player in the competition outside of Semenyo at the moment. He just has to be in there. And then I've gone with Jared Bowen. Now, a lot of people are going to say, why have you gone back to Jared Bowen? Well, I tell you why. He's already beating Victor Gyökeres. And Victor Gyökeres has already had the Leeds United game, which, let's be honest, he is a flat-track bully. He might beat up on these teams. And he was very lucky with that Nottingham Forest goal as well. It was one of them ones that was harder to miss than score. Jared Bowen is playing under a Graham Potter-led West Ham, and he's still got more points than Victor Gyökeres already. Plus, he's going to be playing 90 minutes every single week. He's not in Europe. He's immune for rotation. We don't know how it's going to go with games loading up for Arsenal with their massive squad depth that they've got. Why not play it safe, save a bit of money, get a 90-minute man in, and be a bit different? 6.4% ownership. I'm telling you, when Gyökeres blanks and Bowen gets another 9 points, your rank's going one way and it's going up, baby. It's going up. So this is how the team then looks in game week 8 for the bench boost. If you haven't already used that chip, it looks really good in game week 8. So as you can see there, we've got the Bravka against Leeds with Anthony. Richards has Bournemouth at home. Dan Burn has Brighton away. Vardiol, Haaland, Foden all have Everton at home. The Bournemouth boys, Semenyo, Senesi, even Ilson obviously go away to Crystal Palace, but they should be good because that's going to be outside of Europe and they're going to be playing a tired team potentially. Enzo's obviously got Nottingham Forest away. Bowen's got Brentford at home, which is an amazing fixture. Van der Ven's got Aston Villa at home. Raya obviously has Fulham at home. The difficult fixture here is obviously in Mbumo for Liverpool away. Now, if you didn't like it, you could obviously spend your 0.9 and upgrade even Ilson to João Pedro if you wanted or whatever you want. But I really like that version of the wildcard draft and then the bench boost in game week 8. Obviously, you are relying that over the international break and those 2 game weeks 6 and 7, they don't get injured. But you'd like to hope that your 2 free transfers will cover that for your bench boost in game week 8, and then you can start moving literally money onto your bench. And the good thing is, if Anthony already there, Richard's already there, your bench doesn't actually need that much stripping out of it. So it looks really good. You've got some nice rotation then. The fixtures long term for this team are pretty good as well. So on to the second draft, and there are a few differences here. So on this one, I've actually gone with Saka and Asidior from Sunderland instead of Even Ilson, because obviously Even Ilson has that triple up against Palace in game week 8. And I just like the fact that Isidore has got the Wolves fixture in game week 8, and I think potentially he could get a lot of points in that one. And then Saka obviously will have a much better fixture of Fulham at home in game week 8 as well, whereas Mbumo goes away to Liverpool. You would argue that's historically a tougher fixture than what Fulham at home will be for Arsenal. This one obviously leaves 0.3 million in the bank for my team when I was putting it together. 99.8 million team value. So again, the majority of people should be able to afford it. And it looks quite nice. Like, I'm pretty happy with those defenders. This one obviously is a little bit different. You've got Romero instead of Van der Ven as well. So again, you're paying up a little bit more, then you can easily strip that money back out and bring in Van der Ven or another Spurs defender that however you wish and spend the money elsewhere. You could realistically leave Romero as Van der Ven, and then Saka in game week 9 could become Cole Palmer if Cole Palmer's fit and available again. So again, there are plenty of options there. Obviously, moving forward, it's going to be a Cedar or Anthony, but realistically, with your 5 defenders, you're probably playing a 4-4-2 in this formation the majority of weeks, unless the fixtures align, then you play something else. So again, how does this team look in game week 8? Well, it looks like that. Again, you've got Romero versus Aston Villa. Saka obviously has got a much nicer fixture than Brian and Mbumo. And Asidior, I don't even know how to say his name. I'm sure I've said it wrong every single time there. He's got that Wolves at home fixture. The dude's in form. You got to back him in. And I just think it looks great. Like, it looks really good in general. One thing that a lot of people have not covered, Ndiaye is going to the African Cup of Nations. So by bringing him in, he's a guaranteed transfer out. His injury record's also a little bit sketchy. Already heard Moyes talk about him having a knock already this season. He obviously played and he was fine, but it's something to keep in mind. And realistically, the majority of people I picked here, generally speaking, don't get injuries. Other than Saka, who's obviously known for quite a few injuries here. Romero and Van der Ven, hopefully it was just a one-off last season and they'll be fine this year. But everyone else pretty much is pretty injury non-prone. So that's what you want. So yeah. Game week 6 wildcard draft with a nice game week 8 bench boost. Let me know which one of them you like and whether you actually enjoy the fact that someone's actually put some effort into this and created a draft that looks different to every single other person out there. Put one out this week. I reckon that these ones actually look pretty good on paper myself. And finally, on to a free hit draft for game week 6. This squad value comes in at exactly 100 million. I had 0.1 million left over in the bank, and it is full of paper. And look, I'm not a fan of Ndiaye, but I will sit there and say this week he's actually probably a pretty good pick with West Ham coming at home. I don't mind him this week on a free hit draft. You might play him over one of these other players. However, he's only good enough to make the bench here, along with Asidor, obviously Nottingham Forest away, and Mukiele, who's actually really good for DC points. Now, lots of people have Adriati, and no one's looking at Mukiele, so I don't understand why he's getting overlooked by so many. Since he came into the team, he's pretty much hit him 3 of the 4 weeks, which is a better success rate. So I'm not sure why people aren't going there. Dubravka's obviously there. You sit and forget goalkeeper. Vicario's obviously got Wolves at home, and you double up with Romero. Don't know why I didn't turn his fixture green. I think I got a little bit confused with the other ones. But he's also got a green fixture. The only 2 players in this entire team that do not have green fixtures on paper are Bruno Fernandes and Brian Mbeumo. However, I think that Brentford at the moment should be coloured as a green fixture. So in reality, I actually think that all 11 players have very good fixtures this week. Senesi, Semenyo, they obviously have the Leeds fixture away. Romero doubles up with Vicario, as I said, with the Pigeon up top, who I think will start and be perfectly fine this week. We've got Tarkowski, the DC monster, with Gvardiol as that option from Man City in the defence. Moving into the midfield, we've got Semenyo, who literally every man in his dog has. Foden, who a lot of people are not going to. They're still going back to Reinders or Reindeers because of the price difference. You've got the double up Man United attack, and I'm telling you, one of these weeks it's going to click. They have still created the most XG of any team in the Premier League for the first 5 weeks. It's going to go bang at some point, and it might go bang against Brentford, who looked poor against Fulham and have looked poor multiple times this season and shipped more than 3 goals on multiple times as well. Haaland obviously then is your vice captain? No, he's not. He should be your captain. I just threw that in there to give someone a little bit difference, because sometimes when it comes to free hit, you should take risks. It's like having a one-way punt. So I made the captain pigeon. I made the pigeon captain, not the captain pigeon. Pigeon captain. Haaland obviously the vice, but you could obviously swap it around the other way. Lots of people are free hitting to bring Haaland into captain him. I'm just suggesting free hit. Why not have a little bit of fun? Go with the pigeon instead. Vice captain, he looks pretty good. But yeah, that team, I think, is probably the best free hit team you could probably field this week. Literally good fixtures across the board. You'd expect a boatload of points. It's actually a really good week to be free hitting if your team requires it, because you've got a lot of Liverpool assets and you don't want a wild card, you want to come back to them. I can understand it a lot. I'm not covering a Mo Salah draft because for me, it makes no sense. The dude does not warrant a 14.5 million price tag at this point in time. So for that reason, I just abort him. If you're going to free hit or wild card, entirely up to you. But again, lots to finger, and hopefully you've enjoyed that. So that's the end of my wildcard special. Yes, the cartel are capitulating, but the D-Unit is not capitulating, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sticking fat. I reckon my team can overcome the next few weeks and make it to the international break, where I'll have more information. I'll be able to assess the damage in terms of injuries that happen over the international break, and I'll come back between 8 and 12 and assess whether I can roll through to the ideal wildcard window, which is wildcard 12. Post the last international break, I can milk the price rises during that time period and hopefully come out the other side with a half-decent rank. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that, please smash a like. If you want new and original content, this is the channel to be, not the other places. They literally do the same crap every single day. Thanks for watching. I've been the D-Unit. See you again soon.